Hi, how are you? Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Monsi and today I am going to be going over my 2024 reading goals. Now, I'm someone who likes to routinely set goals throughout the year. They just help to keep me on track. I love the whole ritual of sitting down and creating them and deliberating on how I want to spend my time and thinking about who I want to be and what I want to accomplish. I don't strictly hold myself to these goals, so if at any point they don't serve me, I'm totally fine with abandoning them. I just want to spend my time as intentionally as possible, and I feel like goal setting really helps with that. So with that being said, I want to share with you the 7, 8, something like that, reading goals that I've created for myself for 2024. And I think I'm going to maybe do a mid-year check-in with these goals and then do an end of the year check-in at the end of 24 and see how well I stuck to these and maybe what I would have changed and so forth. Okay, before I tell you my goals, I do want to do a quick little recap of 2023, give you some of my reading stats from last year. So I'm going to go to my Goodreads account first and in the year, and I ended up reading 31. Then in 2022, I set my goal for 40 books and I ended up reading 39. And I actually remember that year I had like a week left in 2022 to read a book and complete the goal, and I just didn't feel like it, so I didn't, and I wasn't bummed out about it. It really wasn't a big deal. And then last year I set my goal for 45 books and I ended up reading 53, which, yay, I did it. For 2024, I think I'm just gonna set my goal to 52. I think that's very doable. I read that much this last year and it felt like a really good amount to me. I didn't feel like I was pushing myself too hard and I was really enjoying myself. So 52 it is. Now I'm gonna go through my year in books on Goodreads and we'll talk about that. Like I already mentioned, I read 53 books. I read 19,376 pages. My shortest book was Our Wives Under the Sea at 223 pages. And my longest book was The Diviners at 603 pages, which really isn't that long for me at all. I've read a lot of 1,000-page books, so maybe that's why I was able to read more books this year, is because I didn't really read that many long ones. My average book length in 2023 was 365 pages. My most shelved book was The Hunger Games, of course. My least shelved book was Good for a Girl by Lauren Fleshman, which was a memoir about a professional runner. And then my average rating for 2023 was a 3.8, which isn't completely accurate because I give half-star ratings and Goodreads doesn't account for that, so take that for what it is. Okay, and then I did a little Goodreads Wrapped. I'll put the link down below where you can plug in your Goodreads URL and then it will kind of create this image that mimics a Spotify Wrapped. Okay, so for my year in books, it says that I read 50 books, but I read 53. Minutes read was 31,122 minutes. My top genres were contemporary, romance, and young adult, which the contemporary and romance are fitting, but I don't remember reading that much young adult other than The Hunger Games, so I don't know what counts as young adult. My top author was Colleen Hoover. She was definitely the author that I read the most. I think I read 5 of her books, and I will be reading 0 in 2024. My reading vibes are considered adventurous. And it says that some of my 5-star reads are Everything I Never Told You, Born a Crime, and The Bodyguard, and those are spot on. Those 3 books were all on my favorite books of the year. I'll link that video down below as well. And yeah, that's my year in books. It's kind of fun, right? Okay, now for my first goal is to read at least 50% of my physical TBR. I don't have that many physical books that I haven't read that live on my bookshelf. I did a video on it and I ended up having, I think, like 22 books in that video, and I've already read 2 of them, so I have 20 left, and so I'm hoping to read 10 of them. Ideally, I would read all 20, right? In an ideal world, but I'm trying to be realistic and set goals that I can actually accomplish. So I'm gonna say if I can finish 10 of the 20 by the end of 2024, that is good enough for me. The second goal I have is to read more nonfiction. I do like reading for pleasure, but I also really like to learn, and so I'd like to challenge myself and stretch my brain a little bit and read more nonfiction this year. I do have this book, The Body by Bill Bryson. This is on my physical TBR, and it's nonfiction. It's all about the body. So if I were to read this, I would be essentially feeding 2 birds with 1 seed, like I would be tackling my physical TBR and I would be reading a nonfiction book. My plan with this one was kind of to read a couple of chapters every month, which I haven't yet done, but it's the start of January, so if I can start doing that, I feel like I'll have no problem getting through this one in 2024. The other book that I would like to read is Why We Sleep. I have that on hold, or I've requested it through the library via audiobook, so that's another one that I would like to read. And then if I can, I'd like to read 2 more nonfiction. I don't know which ones. If you have any recommendations that you feel like are particularly interesting and hold your attention, please let me know. I would love to get those recommendations. There is another book that I'm gonna look up right now. Carly mentioned it in her favorite books of 2023 video, and it sounded really good. So let me look that up. Okay, the other book that I really would like to read is called Ejaculate Responsibly. It's Ejaculate Responsibly, you idiot. Or Ejaculate Responsibly, A Whole New Way to Think About Abortion by Gabrielle Blair. Yeah, like I said, Carly mentioned it in one of her videos and I was super intrigued, so that might be another good option. But yeah, let me know your favorite nonfiction books. The third goal that I have is to read 2 classics this year. So I have The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. This is also on my physical TBR, and I don't know if this technically counts as a classic, but it is a classic detective novel, and so I'm counting it. So that's one that I want to read this year. And then I'd really like to read a book by Jane Austen. I have neither seen nor read Pride and Prejudice. I don't even know the storyline behind that book, which I can't believe. So I kind of want to pick that up. I also want to potentially read a Steinbeck. I think that would be something right up my alley. So those are potential options, but if I can read one in each half of the year, I'd be super pleased with that. Okay, the fourth goal that I have is to read more series. I don't read enough series and I always enjoy them when I do. I don't know, I get intimidated and I don't really like the idea of reading a series that isn't completed, just because if I have to wait years for the next book to come out, I know I'm gonna forget everything that happened in the first however many books. And so I just try not to do that, even though I did do that with Red Rising last year. But I want to read more completed series, or like duologies even. Six of Crows is on my radar. Once Upon a Broken Heart is a book or is a trilogy that I'm really interested in reading. I think that there are a few series by Brandon Sanderson that I would like to read. Yeah, I would just like to read more series. So even if I read one completed series in 2024, that would be checking off this box. Number 5, I'd like to read more audiobooks, which surprises me, okay? Because I am not an auditory learner. I struggle with audiobooks typically, but then I ended up listening to 2 different audiobooks during my 24-hour readathon and had a really good time and realized that I just need to pick a certain type of book to listen to in order to be really engaged. And for me, I think it's primarily nonfiction or memoirs that I really enjoy listening to. And already in 2024, I have listened to a memoir. I listened to The Sound of Gravel and had a great time. I have to commute for work, and so I feel like a productive way to spend my time while I'm driving all over the place is just to listen to an audiobook, and it's something that I like doing now. Yeah, I just want to read more audiobooks, and I'm well on my way. And then my 6th goal is to work on improving my vocabulary. And how this ties into reading is that I read on my Kindle the majority of the time. And when you read on your Kindle, if you don't know a word and you come across it, you can just press down on that word and you'll get a definition for it. And I want to somehow keep a record of the words that I encounter that I'm unfamiliar with and kind of review those every now and then so that I can expand my lexicon. I think that that would be awesome. I think it's one of the biggest benefits of reading. And if I can just be a little bit more intentional about the way that I track unfamiliar words and new words, I think that that would be pretty cool. Okay, and then for my last goal, I want to read longer books, right? The way that I'm going to make this a measurable goal, like what counts as a long book, is looking at the longest book that I read last year. The longest book that I read last year was 603 pages, and so I would like to read at least 2 books that are longer than 603 pages this year. And I have some options. I have Outlander, and then I think Seven Eves is also greater than 600 pages. I don't know what else I have, but surely I can find books that are longer than 600 pages. I like a good long book. Not all the time, but I do enjoy myself a lengthy, chunky one. That's gonna be my final one, my final goal for 2024. Hi, it's me from the future. I totally forgot to mention my favorite goal, the goal that I'm most excited about. So I'm gonna do that now. My actual final goal and favorite goal of 2024 is to reread some of my favorite books. I am not a huge rereader of books. I feel like the only books that I've ever read more than once are the Harry Potter series and then the Hunger Games. So it's just not something that I do, mostly because I feel like there are so many stories to be consumed that I don't want to keep reliving the same story over and over. But I do feel like there is value in performing a second or third or fourth pass through of a book that you loved. And I don't know, I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to do if you enjoyed it so much the first time around. So I have 3 books that I would really, really, really like to reread. And these are books that I consider to be some of my all-time favorites, but I also haven't read them in forever. So I feel like I need to know if they've stood the test of time, okay? First one, I don't have a physical copy of, but that book is called The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. It was the first memoir I ever read, and I read it when I was like 15 or 16 years old. And I remember after reading that book, I was trying to get everyone to read it. And I was successful. I got many people to read that book and many people to love that book. And it's been like 15 years since I've even read it. So that is definitely one that I'm going to revisit, or that I would really like to revisit in the upcoming year. The second book is my favorite book from college, and that is Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. Haven't read it in 10 plus years, so you know, I've held on to it with the hopes of reading it again, and I think 2024 is my year. And then the third book that I want to read, we all know and love, She Needs No Introduction, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read this in 2020. It was a blast. I had the best time ever. I got my boyfriend to read it and he really liked it. So I just want to read it again. I just want to read it again because I know I love it so much and I know I'm going to have a good time. So I feel like this will be one to pick up when I'm feeling like kind of slumpish in my reading, and I think it will snap me right out of that reading slump. Okay, we're gonna go back to past Monsi now. Like I said, I'm going to look at these mid-year and see if I want to shift anything around, add anything, take anything away. But for now, these are the goals that speak to me and that resonate with me and that kind of get me excited about reading. So I'm happy with them. I'm really happy with them. Let me know down below something that you are working towards. It can be any goal. It doesn't have to be reading related. I just love to know what people are striving for and what motivates them and what impassions them. I think that is it for this video. I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you in the next one.